This story here, The Conker Tree, aka Meow, both the TV episode and the book were written by Mick Inkpen. And he did the illustrations for the book too. So without further ado, let's see what happens here. Now, if you watch this on the Fisher-Price YouTube channel, you'll notice that there is no additional writer listed at the bottom of the screen when it shows the episode title, The Conker Tree. It simply says, based on the books by Mick Inkpen. Now, when you first open the book here, there's a little thing here that says, this book belongs to, and next to that, my mom wrote in my name, Joshua, because I had this book when I was pretty little. I wasn't able to read or write yet, but I enjoyed looking at the pictures. Now, the very first page of this book and the first frame of the episode are pretty identical. The colors are a little different, though, and they're drawn slightly differently. But in both pictures, we see a kitten sitting on a high branch of a tree. The book begins. Kipper and Tiger were looking for chestnuts when they heard a noise. Meow! There was a kitten in the chestnut tree. Are you stuck? Said Kipper. Wow, this book actually jumps ahead quite a bit, because we'll hear this on the show later, but there's some other stuff first. One thing that's worth mentioning right away, though, is that in this book, they don't call those things conkers. They actually call them chestnuts. We were talking about that a month or two ago when we were talking about the episode Pig's Shop, where Kipper and Tiger were playing this game with the conkers and we were comparing them to chestnuts. Which makes me wonder if Harcourt Brace and Company, the publisher of this book, changed it from conkers to chestnuts when they released it in the US. Interesting question, I don't know. So anyway, on the TV show, the picture slowly zooms away from the kitten in the tree. Then we cut to another angle with some different trees. And there's Kipper kicking around some fall leaves. And as Tiger walks into the picture, Kipper says, watch this, and he picks up some leaves and tosses them into the air, saying, whee! Hey, I recognize that shot right there. The first time I saw that was actually not in this episode, but in a little 15-second jingle for Nick Jr., because Kipper used to air on Nick Jr. when I was a little kid, when they would show Face and the children singing the Nick Jr. is just for me song. Towards the end of that little music video, when the kids give out a final cheer and saying, just for me, we saw this little part here with Kipper tossing the leaves up into the air. And as the leaves come down, something lands on Tiger's nose, and Kipper's not quite sure what it is. At first he says, look, it's one of those twirly-whirly things. And sure enough, it kind of spins around as it slowly goes down to the ground after Tiger blows it off of his nose. And Kipper thinks they might be called helicopters, because when you twirl them around, they kind of spin around like helicopter blades. This is not the first time I've heard Kipper mention helicopters on this show, though. Even though this episode aired later, I didn't see this earlier one until after that in a rerun. In Clouds, Kipper and Pig were looking up at the clouds, and Kipper thought he saw a cloud shaped like a helicopter. Then finally, Tiger says that it's actually a sycamore seed, but he's not interested in that right now because he's looking for conkers. He thinks there might be some underneath a big tree. I wonder if that's going to be the tree where the kitten is. Well, I think that's the same tree we saw in the beginning, but where's the kitten? And Tiger's disappointed because he can't see any conkers, and he thinks somebody might have gotten them all before they got there. And Kipper doesn't even seem to care. He's too busy playing with his little sycamore seed helicopter thingy. He's kicking around some leaves, and alright, here we go. Now he hears the meow. And he's looking around the tree, trying to see where it's coming from. It gradually gets louder and louder. I guess the kitten sees Kipper. And then Kipper looks up, and he sees the kitten in the tree. He says, oh, hello. Wow, I recognize that part too. At the beginning of the day, at 9 a.m. when Nickelodeon started airing the preschool shows with Nick Jr., they did kind of a little 1 minute opening pageant with all the Nick Jr. characters saying good morning and the real kids and Face. And they sang a little bit of the Nick Jr. is just for me song. And they used that part there where Kipper said, oh, hello. After he says, oh, hello, Kipper says, what's the matter? Are you stuck? And that brings us to the end of the first page of this book. So let's turn the page now and see what happens next in the printed version. Kipper climbed onto Tiger's shoulders to reach the kitten. He grabbed the nearest branch, which snapped. Then we see Kipper and Tiger all falling down in a heap with this branch of leaves on top of them. Chestnuts, said Tiger. But of course in the TV version he doesn't say chestnuts, he says conkers, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, the little Kippers are sort of like a smaller version of the Kipper books. Like there's the regular full-size ones, which are a bit bigger than this. They have like the book that you hold is a little bit bigger, like as far as like being tall and wide, and it also has more pages. This is a much smaller one. Like it's only about 20 pages. Then Kipper calls Tiger over. He says, "Tiger, come and look at this." That reminds me of when Kipper said, "Come and look at this. It's a real hoot," when he was looking at the comics in the tag sale episode, or the jumble sale, whatever you want to call it. But it's a different recording. Same words, though. So Kipper shows Tiger the kitten in the tree and asks him again if he's stuck. And Kipper's pretty convinced that the kitten is stuck. And Tiger says, "We'll have to get it down. I wonder how it got up there. How'd you get up there?" Of course, the kitten doesn't answer. Now Kipper's going to try to climb up the tree, but the trunk is too smooth. He doesn't have anything to really climb with. He says, "No, there's no way up." So now Tiger's going to try climbing on Kipper's back. He's standing on Kipper's shoulders. Kipper's having trouble staying still, balancing Tiger up there. But it's not high enough. And Kipper tries to stand up straighter, and Tiger almost falls again until he grabs Kipper's ears, and Kipper says, "Ow! Mind my ears!" I didn't hear the D in mind when I was a kid. I always thought it was my ears. But yeah, that branch is still too high. And they eventually tumble to the ground. And as Tiger brushes the leaves off of his fur, he says, "We should join the circus." Join the circus? Doesn't that sound familiar? They're pretending that they were a circus in the episode Kipper Circus that we talked about back in February. But once again, that was another episode that came after this. And in case you didn't know, I'm doing these episodes on the podcast in the order that they appear on the VHS tape that my mother recorded for me when I was 3 years old. Because those are the ones that had the biggest impact on my childhood. But now Tiger is saying this thing about a circus right after they just tried to climb on each other's shoulders and they fell over. So I wonder if Tiger was being sarcastic. Because based on what we just saw, they probably wouldn't be very good at acrobatics. That's funny. Tiger just blew into his face to get a leaf off of the top of his head, like... Like kind of twisted his face around and blew upwards. And now Kipper sees a branch hanging a little bit lower. He's going to try to jump up and climb up onto that branch to see if he can get to the kitten. Ah, here we go. This is what was in the book. Yeah, he said he grabbed the nearest branch, which snapped. And on a count of 3, he jumps up there and grabs the branch. He shakes it a bit. And actually, the branch doesn't snap in this version, but Kipper falls out of it, and a bunch of conkers also fall out. And that's when Tiger gets excited and says, "Conkers! Loads of them! Well done, you!" And he's very happy about that. And even though Tiger's happy that he found the conkers, he's still thinking of a way to rescue the kitten. And as he's thinking and pondering this, he's kind of rubbing the conkers on his fur to shine them up a bit. So I don't know if he's thinking about collecting these or playing games with them or what. And Tiger's saying, "What we need is something to catch him in. You know, like firemen use. A fireman's blanket." When I was 3, I had no idea that Tiger was trying to say fireman, like a firefighter, as we call it in the US. My 3-year-old American ears could only hear fi. Like, what does the word fi mean? What is a fireman? I didn't have a clue. My only guess for a while was we had a record store in the mall called FYE, which stands for Your Entertainment. Like, is that what Fi is? But nope, I get it now. Fireman. A fireman's blanket. And Kipper thinks that's a good idea. And so he's going to go home and get his own blanket out of his basket. And while Kipper goes to get the blankets, Tiger's going to stay there and open up the conkers and count them. And while he's doing that, let's continue in the book for a second. Next page. "Wait there," said Kipper. "I'm going to get my blanket to catch the kitten." So Tiger watched the kitten and counted his chestnuts. And the next page. On the way back, Kipper met Pig and his little cousin Arnold. "There's a kitten in the chestnut tree," he said. "Come and help." Now the next thing we see on the show is Pig and Arnold, and just like in the book, we see them on the playground seesaw. And Kipper runs past and says, "Hello, Pig. Hello, Arnold. Can't stop. Emergency." And Pig and Arnold are actually struggling on the seesaw because Pig's a lot heavier than Arnold, and Pig is kind of staying down, and Arnold's way up in the air, if you know what I mean, the way a seesaw works. We dissolve to a little bit later, And we see Pig got off of the seesaw and is just making it go up and down with his hands so that Arnold can actually go up and down and enjoy it. But then Pig abruptly lets go of the seesaw and Arnold kind of falls down. He's not hurt though, but Pig just noticed Kipper coming back and he's got his blanket. Pig says, "What emergency?" And Kipper says, "Come and see if you like. Come on, Arnold." Oh, another theory I had about fireman's blankets when I was a little kid. I noticed that Kipper's blanket has all these fancy designs on it, and at my house, I actually might still have this somewhere, we had a fancy Afghan blanket. An Afghan is a handmade, knitted, or crocheted blanket or throw, named after the textiles of Afghanistan. They are known for intricate stitching, vibrant colors, and geometric patterns, according to Google. So even though the design's a little bit different there compared to Kipper's blanket, I was just thinking, it's a big blanket with fancy, colorful designs. I figured that maybe our Afghan could be considered a fireman's blanket, because apparently that's what Kipper has. Even though that's not true at all, he doesn't have a quote-unquote fireman's blanket or a fireman's blanket either. It's just his own basket bed blanket. So now Kipper and the two pigs return to the tree where the kitten is, and Tiger just finished counting his conkers. He reached 27, and then he says hello to Big and Arnold. And now they're all looking up into the tree, and they see the kitten, and Kipper points him out to Arnold, and then Arnold points to the kitten and says, "Duck!" Which, as many of you probably know, that's Arnold's catchphrase. Usually all he ever says is duck, with the exception of that one episode where he said igloo. It sounds a little bit different in this one. Usually when he says duck, it sounds like duck. But in this one, it's a different tone, like duck. But Kipper corrects him, he laughs and says, "No, Arnold, it's not a duck, it's a kitten, and we're going to get it down." And so now they're opening up the blanket, and each of them are holding the four corners, spreading the blanket open for the kitten to jump into. I don't know if I've ever actually seen firemen use blankets like that in real life. I do remember the movie, The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking, where there was the fire at the children's home, and they showed the glue man jumping into the blankets. And also, Pippi and Mr. Nielsen landed in the blanket after the rope caught on fire. They were trying to walk the tightrope to get out of the burning building. So Kipper and his friends are waiting for the kitten to jump into the blankets, but he's just sitting there not moving. And Tiger says, "He'll jump in a minute." And then we see Arnold crawling into a hole in the bottom of the tree. I wonder where he's going. And meanwhile, they're still waiting for the kitten, and Pig doesn't think the kitten's ever going to come down. He says he's not going to, And there's Arnold poking his head out from between the branches of the tree. So the inside of that tree must be hollow. And Arnold climbed up inside there to get to that branch where the kitten is. And everybody's shocked to see this. And Arnold's just sitting right there next to the kitten. And that is, in fact, another familiar shot. Right before Face said, "For who?" And the kid said, "Just for me." Yeah, I'll never forget that. The children were saying, "I play, I learn, I laugh, and I see. Nick Jr. is just for me." And then we see Arnold sitting in the tree, sucking his thumb and stroking the kitten. Then Face says, "For who?" And then we see very brief little clips of Lil Bear and Franklin, and then that Kipper shot with him tossing the leaves up into the air, and they say, "Yay, just for me!" Definitely some of the most iconic moments in the golden age of Nick Jr. As Arnold's sitting there with the kitten, he points to it and says, "Duck!" So he just calls everything a duck, huh? So before we continue, let's look at some more of this book here. We've got a page here where it says, "Jump into my blanket," said Kipper. "Meow," said the kitten. It wouldn't jump. And it's just the three of them holding the blanket there. The Kipper's got two corners, and Tiger and Pig have the other two corners. And to the far right of the page, we see Arnold getting ready to go up into the tree trunk. Now, on the next page, we got 4 different pictures here. Arnold climbed up inside the tree, and then he walked along the branch. He sat down and stroked the kitten, and then he showed it how to jump into the blanket. We don't see Arnold landing in the blanket in the book, though, but we're going to see it here on the show. Alright, so Arnold's going to jump and show the kitten how to jump into the blanket. He stands up and jumps, And then he falls into the blanket, and his friends kind of lift the blanket up a little bit, kind of toss him into the air. And he lands down the blanket again, and they toss it up again, and he kind of does a little twirl in the air and lands on his feet. Fantastic! Makes me think of how you, lift a parachute up and down, kind of like what we used to do in gym class. And that part right there where Arnold lands into the blanket, they used that shot in the 30-second version of the Just For Me song. That was the longer one where they mentioned some of the characters like Big Brown Bear, Blue Dog, Smart Mouse, Pollywog. Nice place, nice face. Nick Jr. is just for me. Nick Jr. is just for me. I play, I learn, I laugh, and I see. And right when they said, I play, that's where they showed this part here with Arnold landing in the blankets. And immediately after that, when they said, I learn, they showed a little 1-second clip from Blue's Clues Treasure Hunt episode where Steve was right behind the kitchen counter, wiggling his fingers and smiling. In the shorter version, the Lil Bear and Franklin clips, Lil Bear was dancing along from the episode Lil Bear Sing a Song when he was saying Ding Dong. And Franklin, I think, was simply a shot from the season 1 intro where he was hugging his stuffed dog, Sam. And these were the little bumpers that aired in 1999 and 2000, because 99 was when Nick Jr. started airing Kipper, and it continued all the way through 2000. Now, this episode of Kipper's almost over. Let's see how it concludes. Will they get the kitten? Looks like the kitten stood up. It's not sitting on the branch anymore. It's on its 4 legs. And Tiger thinks they're going to get him this time. Says, he's going to jump. Hold tight, everyone. And they're holding onto the blanket. But instead of jumping, the kitten walks back into the middle of the tree, then climbs down the hollow trunk, comes out the bottom, and it turns out he wasn't stuck at all. And Kipper and Tiger, Pig, and Arnold fall down laughing as the kitten just scratches his ears and walks away. Oh, now Arnold's gonna try to chase the kitten. And that brings us to the final 2 pages of the book. The kitten got up. He's going to jump, shouted Kipper. Actually, it was Tiger who said in the TV version, but oh well. But the kitten did not jump. It trod along the branch and climbed down inside the tree. Final page. Then it flicked its tail and went home. It wasn't stuck at all, said Kipper. And on TV, it was actually Pig who said it wasn't stuck. So some of these lines, they interchanged a little bit between the characters, but the rest of the story was pretty much the same. And ooh, interesting, on the back cover, the inside back cover of this book, there's an advertisement for the very first Kipper VHS, The Visitor and Other Stories. That one contained the first 4 7-minute shorts. The Visitor, The Umbrella, The Seaside, and Nothing Ever Happens. I actually have that one. I found it at Goodwill a few years later, but we'll talk about that another day. So that was Kipper, the Conker Tree, and the Little Kipper book, Meow. Visually speaking, it's definitely one of the most iconic episodes of the series, especially if you watch the show on Nick Jr. If you pay attention to all the little clips that they showed during the commercial breaks, they pulled a lot of stuff from this one during the Just For Me song. So it was really cool that we got to see the episode where all those clips came from, and it's also really nice that I got a book containing this story for Christmas back in the year 2000 when I was 3. And due to all of that, this is one of my all-time favorites. It's a very simple one, but has a lot of special meaning behind it, as I've told you. And both the A and C episodes of this program, The Conker Tree and Sleepless Nights, were released on VHS and DVD in the Friendship Tales collection in 2004. However, the B episode, which we're going to talk about next, The Goldfish, was released in the Cuddly Critters collection in 2002. So now I'm going to cut right here, and in a flash, we're going to talk about today's B episode of Kipper the Dog, The Goldfish.
What's that place on TV?
Just for me, and lots of my friends will be. Just for me, brown hair, blue dog, smart mouse, pollywog.
Nice place.
Nice face. Nick Jr. is